Hi, everyone. Today we have Mary Stec, and she's going to share with us the incredible story of her grandson, Finn. Thank you, Mary, and thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for having me. It's such a joy, and I'm so honored that you would consider my story pertinent enough to share with the world.
Thank you. A wonderful story. I'm looking forward to sharing it with everyone.
Me too. Me too. There's lots of people who have heard this story and have actually had their lives turned around. And I equate that to Finn and who he is and who he came into the universe to be. He's a very special person. So do you want me to begin?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay. Well, Finn is now, he's my grandson, and he's now 20 years old and doing really well. He's over 6 feet tall and he's gorgeous and has a heart that's just so incredible. Although when he was 4 years old, he was having little tummy aches, and his mom and dad took him to the pediatrician, and the doctor said, his liver seems a little enlarged. So I'd like to take a look at it in a couple of weeks. We're going to schedule an MRI, and let's just take a look and check it out. So my son called me and told me the news. I remember exactly where I was. I was in TV production, so I was at SONY Pictures on the top of the parking garage, overlooking expansive view of LA and the ocean. It was, I know, those moments where you know exactly where you are when pivotal things happen. So he told me, and he said, we're going to do an MRI in 2 weeks. I said, no. We have to do this today or as soon as possible. So I went home and I started calling all the diagnostic centers I could find in the LA area. And I said, I have a 4-year-old who has an enlarged liver. Someone needs to see him now. We need to get this picture done now. And one of the diagnostic centers took it to heart and said, let me call my 8:30 appointment tomorrow and see if they will give it up to let Finn come in. So she did. And in the morning I got the call, and she said, we're ready, you bring him in. So of course, my kids were thinking, you're panicked, Grandma. What are you worried about? It's okay. I said, no. We're doing it today. So that was St. Patrick's Day. And he went in at 8:30, and by 10:30, he was admitted to Children's Hospital. The MRI showed a tumor on his liver. He was diagnosed with stage 4 liver cancer. And the tumor was so large, it encroached into his heart. And the doctors said that he was days away from cardiac arrest. So if we'd waited even a few days, he probably wouldn't be with us. So this is, again, another pivotal date, St. Patrick's Day. And we were given this news, and each time we got more news, it got more dire, and his chances dropped to 30%. And they said, we don't even want to take a biopsy because we're afraid to dislodge even a cell into his heart. So they started chemo that night. And I can't even tell you, those of you who are parents particularly can imagine the impact that it had on all of us. And you kind of go on autopilot. There are things you have to get done. There are people you have to talk to and papers, and you have to take those, or I had to take those emotions and set them aside. The incredible fear and sadness and stress, and just set it aside and do the work. So we did, and he got into his room and started his chemo that night. And they said, we don't know if this chemo, by the way, there are only 2 teams that specialize in this particular type of cancer. One is at Johns Hopkins and one is Children's Hospital, LA. It's called hepatoblastoma. And they happen to just be in Children's Hospital. So I'm kind of weaving miracles as we go along, because everything was kind of miraculously run by some greater source. It wasn't me that got him into it was the inspiration from God that said, have him there tomorrow, have him to the hospital, have him to that hospital, because that was the team that specializes in that particular cancer. So he started chemo that night. And the next morning, I remember his mom and I started a 24/7 vigil, the two of us, because his daddy had to work. And I had time because I was running a company, but I didn't have to work at the jobs. I had a staff. So I was in charge of the morning after, and because Finn had a little brother. And I remember the doctor walking in and started pressing on his little tummy, just kind of probing around, just pressing. And I just was like, it's the feeling is overwhelming when you have a child. I mean, anybody with cancer, but a child hasn't lived his life or her life. And to see that life possibly cut short is just, there's so many layers of fear there. So I was sitting at the chair watching the doctor, pressing on his tummy, and it was a woman, and she looked up at me and she said, "It's softer." And I said, "What does that mean?" She said, "It's working." And one layer of the fear sort of floated away. Okay, it's working. Now we just have to pray and visualize it to continue working, to beat down this thing. And then one night, and the chemo was devastating. I mean, he went to 21 pounds. He was so tiny. And because of my background in television, I had access to a lot of really cool people, like the real Spider-Man stand-in who goes out on the jaunts. Spider-Man was just coming out. So the real Spider-Man, not the actor, but the real stand-in came in full makeup, in full costume, and Spider-Man's here to make you well. And then the real Batman, because I have, as I said, connections. And they were amazing because not only did they visit Finn, but they visited the entire floor of the cancer kids ward. So it was just, giving was really nice. So I was with him one night, and he was really having a hard time. And he was in ICU. There were only 2 beds and a nurse's station between the 2 beds. We were one-on-one nursing 24/7. And suddenly he kind of, what I thought was falling asleep, and she rushed in and he went code blue. And she said, "Okay, Finn, come back to us. Come on back, Finn." And I didn't quite understand what she was doing, but his heart had stopped. And in that moment, something happened, and he woke up and he looked different. His eyes were different. His energy was different. Now, it was only a minute. I can't say that he was dead for 20 minutes. It was just, a small time, but something changed in him. And he started getting better. And he continued to get better. And then when he was strong enough, he had half his liver removed to remove the rest of the tumor. And he was sent home. And he was given tests every month to see if there was any return. And 10 months later, the doctor called and said, "It's back. And there's really nothing more we can do." So I went to bed that night. And I guess it was an opposite kind of affirmation, because I said, we are not doing this again. This child is not going through this, and we're not going to lose him. And I remember the only thing I had of his was a little pair of underpants. And I held it and I slept with it next to me. And I said, we're not doing this. And the next morning, I got up and I was making the bed, and there was a marble, a good sized marble that looked like a big pearl. It was pearlized on the bed. Now, as I mentioned, Finn had a little brother. 2 years old. We didn't have marbles in the house. They just weren't part of our lives. And I took it and I went, oh, that shouldn't be here. And I threw it away. And the next day, I had to go to the valley. I live in Agora Hills, and I had to go to the valley to do some stuff. And it was lunchtime and I was hungry. So I went to my favorite restaurant called Follow Your Heart. And as I walked in, I picked up the Whole Lifetimes and I sat down, ordered my meal, and just opened this magazine, not to the first page, but just opened it. And there was a 2-page spread that said something about this reconnective healing. And this was now Wednesday. And it kept saying cures cancers, and I kept going back to cures cancers. Oh, I forgot to tell you, I got in my car to go to the valley. I opened the car door and there was another marble on my car seat. That's one of the most important pieces. And because that's what said to me, something's real is going on here. And I kept that one. So then fast forward to this magazine I opened up, and all this stuff about this training that was happening on Friday, just 2 days away, and training to become a practitioner. But my eyes kept going to cures cancers. And then I looked at the guy who was running the training, and his name was Dr. Eric Pearl. So I thought, okay. And I was sitting in a restaurant called Follow Your Heart. So I did. I picked up, I still get chills. I still get chills. So I picked up the phone and I called them and I said, I want to sign up for training. And I have somebody I'd like to bring in, to have some sessions done on. And she said, okay, have you read the book? I said, I don't even know who you people are, but I know I have to be there and I have to bring someone with me. And so I signed up. Now, the rest of the story, we can go on, but I think that it's really amazing to tell the rest of the story. So I'm going to stop there and come back and hear what happened to this training and to Finn. And yeah, it's quite a story. Do you have any questions for me?
I really don't. I think what we should do now is a part 2 and maybe say goodbye to everyone, because there's so much more. So people who got to hear that a pearl shows up in your house, shows up in your car, and you don't have little things around because you have a 2-year-old grandson also that's going to choke on things. So you threw the first one away. When you saw the
Right.
second one, I guess what we interpret is some divine nature came to you and said, Pearl, Pearl, you open up a magazine. It's Eric Pearl. It sounds like the universe, something was telling you, this is where you need to go. So I'd like to say goodbye to everyone, unless you have more comments, because I want to hear more about the story of Finn in part 2, if you don't mind. I think people will be fascinated. And what happened with Finn after that, and more of your background. And then the business, I'm so fascinated, the business that you do to help people with their skin, a new type of device. So I'd like to talk about that too, if you don't mind. So is it okay if we do part 2?
Of course, I'd love to do it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mary. And thank you everyone who's with us right now. What I'm going to do is in the description, the little arrow, if you don't know about that arrow yet, you're going to have all the information to reach out to Mary, all the information to reach out to me. And the reason I do these interviews is I struggled probably about 2 years with a lot of anxiety. Probably it could have been called depression, but anxiety, fear, doom. And I could tell you all my problems like we all have and really difficult things, but I knew something was wrong. And so I learned how to help myself. That's why I do these, because people like you, Mary, who share these stories about pearls showing up, how does that happen? Or near-death experiences, a lot of these stories, or meditation, people go places during meditation. It helped me heal. So I appreciate that you're open to tell the story of your journey and your grandson's journey. And I also have to say, incredible that you saved his life by saying, don't wait 2 weeks, like that grandma, that instinct. Wow, that was very impressive to hear. And I have, by the way, one of my videos is Dr. Yadigar in Tarzana, California, who also saved my father's life, because I had an instinct to pull my father out of the first ER. He was there 13 hours. took him to Biadagar. He saved my dad's life from COVID because my dad fit the profile, you know, overweight and many comorbidities, and he was going to lose his life. And my dad is fine now, almost however many months later, 18 months. So thank you, Mary. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Again, go to the description and your comments. We'd love to hear what you thought of Mary. And if you've had some wild story, I'd love to interview you too. So please give me your email in the comments. And thank you, everyone, for being here, especially thank you, Mary.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
We appreciate your time, Mary.
Take care.